Hello, and here we are for our first math lesson of this week. And our target for today is that you can multiply two two-digit numbers together using a column method. So we're moving on from the grid method and looking at the more efficient column method and seeing whether what we can do with that. Obviously, first off, to start with, we're just going to have a go at recapping some of the stuff we already know. So here's your arithmetic to start with. How's it going now? Pause and try your luck. Okay, so hopefully we've got some answers down. First off, 3 times 8, which is 24. So 30 times 8 would be 240 because it's just in the tens column. So if you remember that we've got times by 10 first, that gives us our 0 in the ones column. Then 3 times 8 is 24, that goes in the tens column. So you get 240. And then we've got 6 times 7, which is 42. And then you've got a missing bit. 420 is 6 times what? And if you were looking at the pattern, you'd realize that 6 times 7 is 42, but it's also times by 10. So it must be 70 that it's being times by. Then we've got 22 times 13. So we can use our grid method down here. We partition 22 into 20 and 2 and 13 into 10 and 3. Then we times 10 and 20 together to get 200, 10 and 2 to get 20, 20 and 3 together to get 60, and 2 and 3 to get 6. And then we add them all together to get 286. If we do the same with number 4, 22 and 14, again, it's just another 22. So realistically, rather than doing 14 and doing it all over again, we could just add another 22 on top and get 308. So let's move on to the lesson proper. Here's our first one, it's 23 times 31. So we partition our 23 and we partition our 31. We times 30 and 20 together to get 600, thinking about the fact that there's this 0 and this 0, that one and that one. Make those two. Then we've got 30 and 3. There's the tens. 20 and 1, again, 1, 0 for the tens. And then 1 times 3 is 3, and we add them all together. And that gives us our answer of 713. Now, we could write it like this. And if we're writing it like this, we have to think about how we might do it and what order we do it in. So the first thing we do, and we're going to use it, and you see there's 2 lines here. So the first thing we're going to do is going to do the ones. We do 23 times by that 1. And that's what we're going to do in that section. And the next one, we've done our ones, we have to do our tens. We would do 23 times 30. And I'll show you how this works. But the first thing is, the first one is much the same as we've done before. We do 1 times 3 as our first step, which is our ones. So we do 3 times 1, and we do 20 times that 1, which is the second part. 20 times 1, and we'd add those together and they go in here. So we do 3 times 1 first, which is 3, and then we do 20 times 1, which is 20. So it's 23 in total. That's this part of the calculation here. You're timesing 1 by both parts, so it's this bit here that will go in there. Then we're looking at the next section, which is 30 times 23. Now, we're starting in this column here. So we're starting in the 10 column rather than the 1 column. So we can straight away know that we're timesing by 10 and put the 0 in there. And then we can just use our times tables to do the rest of it. We do 3 times 3, which is 9, and that would go in the tens column. Then we do 3 times 2, which is 6, and that goes in the next column up. So it's very similar to what we're doing. You're just imagining you're shifting it along 1 column because it's in your tens column. And that is those 2 bits together. They go down there. So in overall, then we just add the 2 bits together. So 3 and 0 is 3, 2 and 9 is 11, and then 6 and 1 is 7. Our answer is 713, much like it is here. This way is much quicker, but you do have to think about individual bits. And the bits that most people get wrong is when you're doing your timesing by your 10, this bit, they forget about adding this 0 in. So look at the next slide. Here's a question, 41 times 26. So let's go through the steps much like we did before. The first thing we're doing is what? Have a go. Think about what we did before. You could even write this out, go back to the previous part of the lesson, just skip back a little bit. And as I talk through it, do it on this one and see if you get the right answer. Pause now and have a go. Okay, so let's have a look to see the way in which we do it. The first thing we're doing is the 41 times the 6. We're doing our ones of our second number. So we do 6 times 1, which is 6. And then we do 6 times 4 or 4 times 6, but in the tens column, much like we have been doing for our other methods. And what we get is 24. And you can see that here, that's 24. And then you would normally times it by whatever number is here. There's nothing here, so this 2 just then becomes 2 completely. That's our first section. That's the easy bit because we've kind of done that before. The next bit is when we have to times by the tens column. So it's 41 times by 20. So you do 20 times 1 first, which is nothing in the ones column because it's timesing by 20. So we're timesing by 10, which means that's 1 column up. So we don't, when we're timesing by 10, we don't start in the ones column, we start 1 column up from there. Yeah? Much like when we times by 10, we're moving 1 column up. Then we do 2 times 1, which is 2. The next step after that is we do 20 times 40. Now, we've already got an answer here, and this is the easiest way to remember it. So we have to move into the next column, but also we're doing 2 tens together. 2 tens, 10 times 10 is 100, so the answer must go in the hundreds column. 4 times 2 is 8, that goes in there. And then we add them. 6 and 0 is 6, 4 and 2 is 6, 2 and 8 is 10. We've got nothing in that column, so the 1 straight up goes there. So 41 times 26 is 1066. Have a look at this. Can anyone tell me what the error is? Pause and have a think. Okay, so I talked about a classic mistake that people make. What is that classic mistake? And the mistake is here in this part of the answer. Because what they've forgotten when timesing by this is that they forgot this starts in the tens column. So rather than the answer being this, the answer should have been like that. So I hope you got that. Time for you to have a go yourself. Here are some questions. The first set of questions are working out multiplications. It's just seeing the pattern between timesing by units and timesing by tens and knowing that we can have our times tables that help us solve those. The next one, number 2, is having a go at using the model to fill in the answers. First one is you're just having to add it. Second one is you're thinking about what has been times together and what the answer is. And the third one over here, C, is looking at what's being done on the side and whether that tells us what the question was as well. And then the answer. Have a go, pause now and try. Okay, so let's go through the answers. On the first part over here, this is nice and straightforward. 6 times 6 is 36. So if we're including it as 110, we times it by 10, so it becomes 360. And actually, this is the pattern that follows through the entirety of these questions. And as long as you know that when you're timesing by 10, you make the number 10 times bigger, by moving it on one space, you're in a good place, really. The next one we got is over here. And as you can see, they've colored this in 0, and that just helps you remember where it is. But what you've got, all you're having to do in this case is add up each column to get 559. The second one down here, what they're actually asking you is what you're timesing by what. So what are these questions over here? This first one is your 21 times by your 6. So you've got that here. And the second section is your 21 times by that 10. And then your answer is this. Up here, it's asking you to use this part of what's written down to find out what the question was. And as you can see, these two bits are the same. So that is what's gone on the top. And then these two bits are partitioned out. You put the partition back together, it becomes 25. Add those bits together and you get your answer. So Tommy wants to find out the area of the pink part of the rectangle. And what we've got, and the difficulty here, is that he's got parts that he's missing. So how do we use what we know to help us do that? Well, have a think, see what you come up with, and then we'll run through it. So let's think about this. The first thing we do is think about what the whole area is itself. And we can use the length and the width here, times them together, and we'll have the whole of this rectangle, including these parts, but we'll have the whole of it. So we can do our multiplication here. We do 35 times 6. So 6 times 5 is 30. And 6 times 3 is 18, plus 3 is 21. Then we do 35 times 10. Remember to put the 0 in first from timesing by 10. Then we do 1 times 5 is 5, 1 times 3 is 3. And we add it together to get 560. So the total area of the pink shape plus the two white bits is 560 centimeters squared. And now we need to take away those white bits. So we need to work out, that's our total area. We need to work out how much each of those areas are. We can find out that that's 12 times 7 twice, because that's what our measurements tell us. So either we can do 12 times 7 is 84, and then add 84 to 84 to get 2 of them, or we can times it by 2 to get 168. Then we just take away those white areas from the total area, so 560 minus 168, and that gives us a final answer of 392. And what you have to remember is that these red areas here are taken away from the total. So it's much easier to find the total first, then take these away. You also have to remember what these measurements might be talking about. Because this is the bigger one out of these ones, it is more than likely the total width, and these ones are the smaller ones, which sometimes can be confusing. Okay, time for you to have a go now. We've got Mo's calculating 34 times 23. Here's his working. What mistake has Mo made, and what is the correct answer? Then try to work out these multiplications using one of the methods. And then you've got a written question. A machine prints 92 labels every minute. How many labels will it print in 3/4 of an hour? Pause now and have a go. Okay, let's have a look at the answers. So for the first one, over here, what we're looking at is what could have gone wrong. And what's gone wrong is that classic error we talked about before. When he's timesing by the 10, he's missed that 0 out that should be there. So we put that one back in, we complete our answer, and the answer we get is 782. So he wasn't correct because he didn't set it out right. Using those methods, you should be able to come up with the answers here. If we've got any problems with those, we'll go through them at some point. But as long as we follow our method, you should find that these are the answers you get. Then we've got a written question. Let's go through one of them first so we know. So we'll do 52 times by 34. And then, so the first thing we do is 52 times 4. and then we're doing 52 times 30. And before I go any further, the first thing I'm going to do is just put that 0 in there so I know that I've done that bit. And that just makes my life easier. A little bit of a cheat, but it makes my life easier. It's a nice little way to remember that that needs to be there. Then I can do 4 times 2, which is 8. I can do 4 times 5, which is 20. Then I can do 3 times 2, which is 6. And I can do 3 times 5, which is 15. There's nothing else to add on there. So there we have it. Then what we need to do is add this all together. 8 and 0 is 8. 6 and 0, 6, 5 and 2 is 7, and 1 on its own is 1. So our answer is 1,768, which is what we've got here. And that's the way I'd go about it. The clever bit is doing this 0 before you even start, and then you're not going to get it wrong. So here, we've got a machine that labels 92 per minute. So how many labels will it print in 3/4 of an hour? And this is the important part. How many minutes in 3/4 of an hour? Well, it's 45 minutes in 3/4 of an hour. So what I've got to do is times those two numbers together. So we do 5 times 92. And then we're going to do 40 times 92. Before I go any further, what can I put in place? I can already put that 0. I know it's there. That's just going to help me out. And I've done that bit. 5 times 2 to begin with is 10. 5 times 9 is 45, plus 1 is 46. Cross that out so I know it's been done. Then I do 4 times 2 is 8. 4 times 9 is 36. So the 3 would go down here, the 6 would go in here. That 3 then is with nothing. So it just becomes 3 on its own. Then I could do my addition. 0, 6 times 6 plus 8 is 14. 6 and 4 is 10, plus 1 is 11. 3 and 1 is 4. Our answer is 4,140. And that's how I would do it. So one last question before I go. Have a go at this one. Here are 2 rectangles. You've got a rectangle here, which is colored, and a white one here. So first off, what's the compound shapes? You have to work out what the area of both is and work out how you do this. And then what's the area of the shaded part? Pause now and have a go. And here are our answers. So there are 2 rectangles. The first thing we need to do is work out what the area is of each. So we do 16 times 24, which is 400, which is this one here. So this area is 400. Then we've got 26 times 47, which is 1022, which would be that one. And we work that out using the methods that we have been using. Just remember, we're timesing these together to get the answers. And then we know that that's 400 there. We know that's 400 there. We know that's 1,222. And all we're doing is adding them all together. So 2 lots of 400 is 800. We add that on to the 122, and we get 2022. And there it is. Now it's meters squared because what we're measuring in and all of these is meters. So over here, we're just going to quickly see if I can't. So here is the opposite of this almost. We know what the 2 things are. We've got the full grey part, which is this, and then we're taking away this inside part here. So what we're doing is taking the total area, which is 100, and minusing our 400 from that to work out our answer. 2 minus 0 is 2, 2 minus 0 is 2, 4 minus 0, we can't do, we do 12 minus 0 is 8. Our answer, therefore, is 822 meters squared. I hope you did all right in that. If there are any questions, please do let me know. Thank you for being with me for this lesson, and we'll see you in the next lesson. Goodbye.